welcome everybody to this webinar. I hope you are going to leave it feeling very positive and stress-free yourself, all about exam and revision time. It is a difficult time for everybody involved, and whatever we can do to make it lighter and brighter and more manageable is only a good thing. All the tips and techniques I'm going to share with you today are based on evidence. We know that these things work, and science has proved it, no matter how out there they might seem, some of them. You may be used to working in a very academic matter and a very straightforward matter, but children's mental health is absolutely key to their academic success. And it's been proven time and time again that people who are successful manage their stress well. So this is what we want for our students, and it's important that we weave this in to the teaching that takes place and the exam preparation. The big problem with exams is they actually do matter. We can't say, oh, it was just a bad day, don't worry about it, because exams are important, but they bring with them loads of issues that can cause huge amounts of stress and anxiety. Exams are a short window of opportunity to showcase learning. So you may have had a student at your school for 5 years gearing up to their GCSEs, yeah, or doing their A-levels after 2 years of intense work, or taking their SATs at the end of their primary school experience, and they get a couple of hours to show what they know. Well, that is hugely stressful for students. They think, I'm going to have to get it right in that little window, or it's all going to fall apart. It's a lot of pressure. Exams also rely a great deal on memory and quick thinking. Sure, essay writing skills and knowledge come in there, but quick thinking and memory are key, and they can be really hard to do when you're under pressure. Clarity of thinking is essential to a student who is going to provide good, clear answers. That's not easy. We all know that when we're under pressure. If you imagine, for example, losing your key first thing in the morning and you're in a rush, it's really hard to think about where you last might have put it. If you're not in a rush, it's much easier to just go step by step through where it might have been. Clarity thinking is essential, but it's problematic. And of course, there is child and teen development. Children are going through puberty, it's hormonal changes, all sorts going on. This can get in the way of a calm approach to exams. So they really matter, and lots of things block them. You all know why they matter, but we can forget how there are so many pressures on our students in terms of where these exams can lead to. It could lead to them being accepted or not at their next school. Streaming, are they in the bottom set or the top set? These exams might decide. And then, of course, the A-level choices they make. If they don't do well in maths at GCSE, can they take it at A-level? They might be looking at an apprenticeship and need certain grades, or they might be wanting to apply for a job and worry they won't get the exams they need. Or maybe they're aiming for a top-class university and the pressure to get perfect grades is on. These aren't the only pressures. Their self-worth is involved. You know, will it destroy their self-image and their pride if they don't do well? Will their family be disappointed in them? Are they pressuring them? And what about school? How will the school feel about their teachers, about their students? Will they be disappointed in them? There are a lot of pressures on our students, and they matter in all these aspects. And we have to accept the fact that they do matter. They are important, but we can still take some of that pressure off. So the short window of opportunity to showcase learning. All things can get in the way of that. The pressure can get too much. Life can happen. We've had pandemics. People can be ill. You know, parents can get separated. Life just happens. And when you've only got a short window in which to perform, sometimes that gets in the way. Our students tend to think unless they get it right in that window, it's all been for nothing. Catastrophizing is quite a common thing for children to do, think all or nothing. And that's because the limbic part of their brain, the emotional part, is much stronger and more developed than their prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of their brain. So we have to let them know it is not all or nothing. They've gained lots and lots from their learning, and there are many paths it will take them. It's not all about the exam result. But the long lead up time, possibly a year, possibly 2 years, in the case of A-levels, to an actual short exam can bring a great deal of pressure, and we need to minimize that. As I've said, they rely a great deal on memory and quick thinking, and this does not suit every learner. You might have an exceptionally talented student who does not do well in terms of memory and thinking quickly when in stressful situations, and this will add to their pressure. So we need to help them with their learning style, and we need to help them find some ways around having to think quickly and to calm their nerves. And very hard to remember or think fast if you're anxious or overwhelmed, and that's why we need to address these issues. It's not just about soft skills and being kind to our students' mental health. The absolute reality is, if we don't attend to anxiety or overwhelm in regard to exams, they are unlikely to perform well in terms of memory and quick thinking. So it's essential we address these issues. When we think clearly, we are more intelligent. Science has done a lot of research in this area, and it is put at about 30% more intelligent when you are calm. That's a huge amount. It is well worth teaching our students to be calmer. We are more logical when we're less emotional, because our brains are no longer flooded with those chemicals that are released when we're emotional, the adrenaline, the cortisol, and because our brain isn't soaking in this emotional stress, we can start to think more logically and make better judgment calls in terms of time and in terms of the answers that we give. Fear also clouds judgment. So it's not just the emotions, it's the fear of the exam. So we have to address fear too. And we have to address bodies, because a relaxed body leads to a relaxed and clear mind. A tense body leads to a tense and unfocused mind. So I hope I have persuaded you that all these things really do make a difference to exam performance. Now, you would think child and teen development, it gets in the way of exams, puberty, hormones, body changes, relationship changes, romantic relationships, brain development, the brain restructures in the teen years. What a time to have exams, you would think. Not a great mix, is it really? All these things going on for our students at a time when they need to perform at the best. And we need to be sensitive to all these things going on and teach them coping skills when they threaten to be overwhelmed by the very fact they are a teenager or a child. All is not equal when it comes to exams, and we absolutely need to be aware of that. So obviously within your classroom, there will be an array of ability levels. Some students will do well, and some, are going to find these exams very tricky and not necessarily get good grades. That's the reality in every single classroom. So we need to focus on our students progressing, rather than getting top marks. For every single student, it's about showing progress and then being proud of that progress. So we need to take into account those different ability levels and how we talk about exam success. It's not just about getting an A, it's about making progress. And there will be students in your class who have additional needs and disabilities. And it's really important to talk to those students early on in the revision and exam process, like at the start of the year, about what access needs they may have when it comes to exams and revision. Do they need a note taker? Do they have ADHD and need noise cancelling headphones, or to sit in a room by themselves so they aren't distracted? You need to find out what it is you can do to help their exam experience be positive. And the question to ask is, what does that student need to succeed? Very often they will tell you themselves. Very often parents will know, but create a team around that child and get those access needs met, because you will reduce their stress hugely if they know they're going to be able to cope with the exam situation. If you have students who have mental health issues or who have had in the past, be aware that this additional pressure to perform will possibly cause more issues for their mental health. Make sure the counselling support is in place. Let them know where to go if they are struggling to cope and how to access support, but be aware of their past and how this might be impinged by this new exam. In regard to home life, many of your students will get pressure to do particularly well. Some may not get support. Some may go home with their homework but have no place to sit, or noisy siblings, or siblings they need to take care of. Home life can be chaotic, it can be pressured. It's really important that we communicate well with home and say study space is required if possible. Support rather than pressure is required, but that we also mitigate for those students who don't have that place at home to study and provide an after-school homework club, or find out about their local library with them, a place they can go to work. Your students are going to have a variety of personalities too. Some will be confident and very easily ask for the help and support they need, and some will be shyer and may not speak up. So really attend to your students' personality. Those perhaps who aren't speaking up, get in there and ask them. Check out with them, how's it going? What do you need? Yeah, because they will all be different. So all is not equal, but our aim is to make it as equal as possible so the stress levels are minimized. Now, exams can cause stress for everybody involved. So you can have a student who's putting pressure on themselves, and you can have parents who are putting pressure on the students, and parents that are putting pressure on the teachers for their child to do exceptionally well. You can have teachers putting pressure on themselves, and teachers who are getting pressure from their head teachers. Yeah, it can be a really tricky time, and emotions are contagious. We pick them up from each other, and we usually pick them up from the leader. So if you're in a staff room, the head teacher's talking and it's very negative, these students are not performing well, the school's not doing well, we need them to pass this exam. As a teacher, you're going to feel quite panicky probably about that and pressured. The same happens with your students. If you are stressed and if you are panicking and if you are fearful of these exams, they will pick up that vibe and probably feel the same. So the emotion they want to catch from you that will be really helpful is calm, positivity, a sense that you can do this and you've got this, the class are going to perform well, and it's all manageable and okay. And if you present that to your class, that is what your students will pick up. And if you present that back to parents when they're worried, that's what they'll pick up. Emotions are contagious, and that can be really to our benefit. There is, of course, good stress and bad stress. Some stress is important if we need to perform. We do need to be a little bit worried about it, so we do the extra work. But some stress is really debilitating, can affect how you eat and how you sleep and how you feel, and this will interfere. So it's about getting that balance and keeping a close eye on when it's tipping over. We always have to start with ourselves when we're teaching anything to do with being calm and in control. And we need to look at our own stress first, because as a teacher, you are probably the second most significant adult in that child's life after their parent. And they will look to you for cues on how to manage stress. So let's start with your stress as a teacher. You need to think about where it comes from. Does it come from parents? Are you stressing yourself out? Does it come from the governors of your school? Where's it coming from? Name it to tame it, psychotherapists say. And what that means is once you have clarity, you can start to think about a problem rather than just feel. So name it to tame it. How does it manifest in you? Does it make you bad-tempered? Does it affect your sleep? How does it manifest? And that's important, because if you're not getting enough sleep, you'll not be a great teacher. And if you are bad-tempered, your students will ask you questions. So check where it manifests. And then we need to learn to control it. I like to use control circles when it comes to managing stress. You have a small circle on your page, and in the center, you put the things you can control. Then you do an outer circle, and in the outer circle, you put the things you can't control. So you can't control parents who are contacting you or pressuring their students, but you can control sending out a newsletter to parents, reminding them that stress interferes with exams. You can't control whether a student actually revises at home, but you can control, in the middle circle, having a lesson that teaches your students how to write a great revision plan and checking they've done it correctly. So you can control your actions and your thoughts. That is it. Your actions and your thoughts. So That's where you need to focus. If you focus on the stuff on the outside and you talk about it, you vent about it, you worry about it, you'll get nowhere because you cannot control that. If you focus on what you can control, you will feel stronger and more in control, and you will feel calmer, and you will convey that calm to your class. Then I want you to look at the areas in the middle, the things you can control, and how can you reduce stress in those areas? Well, rather than having 30 different parents contacting you with questions about the exams, when do they start, what does my child need, they're stressing out, what do I do? You could send a newsletter about exams and meet all those needs at once and reduce your stress. So think about where the stress is and the areas you can control and what you can do to reduce it. Maybe you need a buddy teacher to talk over your issues with. Maybe you need to get into work earlier so everything is planned and ready. You'll know. It's also a good idea to make a list of stress busters and keep it nearby. The things that can de-stress you in a classroom situation. Maybe it's a squeezy ball, maybe it's a little bit of hand lotion so you can give yourself a little hand massage under the desk. Maybe instead of at lunchtime having a coffee and a gossip, you go for a walk out in nature and just calm yourself down. Or maybe you listen to some music that chills you out. Make a little list. And if you're stressing out in the classroom, it's all getting too much, get your list out, pick something off it that you can do. And sometimes make that explicit to your class and say, do you know, it's been a really heavy morning, hasn't it, of revision? I am going to make sure at lunchtime I take some time to breathe. I'm going to go for a little walk in nature. Do you ever do that? Yeah. Give them suggestions about stress busters and check your own all or nothing thinking. If your students are progressing but aren't getting top grades, they are still progressing. That's still an achievement for your teaching. I'm not saying lower your standards, but don't make it all about the results. Make it about the progress and the confidence of your students, and you will see that things are going well. So how do we ease exam stress explicitly for our students? We know what all the issues are. We know what we need to take into account. We now know how very, very important it is that we do ease that exam stress in terms of their performance results. So I would start by sharing the positives of exams. Now, many students are going to go, what? There's no positive to exams. What are the positives? But actually, they are a stepping stone to the next step in their life. And we really want them to see that it's a chance for them to show off what they know. This is their big moment to show all that learning and then take the next step on in their life. Exams can be a real positive. We want to motivate our students and incentivize them, and to motivate them, give them great feedback, show them how they've progressed from the year before, how the results are better or their learning has deepened. That will motivate them. Encourage them to think beyond the exam and what's going to happen next, and why doing as well as they can will make a difference. And incentivize them. Let them know that once the exams are finished, something great is going to happen. There will be a payoff for their hard work. Maybe there's going to be a play or a party of some kind, or maybe it's just that, hey, if you work really hard and get those grades, you will be able to do this next step. But motivate and incentivize. We all need something to move towards. And do teach them revision techniques. Telling a child to revise is all well and good, but not all children work well making flashcards or watching YouTube videos. Some need somebody to actively ask them questions. Others need to sit and draw out mind maps. Teach them a variety of techniques so their revision does not get boring and so you meet all their learning needs, but explicitly teach them. Also teach them how to balance their revision timetable so there are slots for free time, but to use that free time in a way that gives their busy brain a break. So having an hour free and going on a PlayStation whilst talking to their friends, shooting lots of people, it's going to be quite frenzied. Going and having a relaxing bath, going out into the garden, listening to some chilled music, that's the way to give their busy brain a break. Even listening to some comedy, yeah, and it will help them just relax and then restart afterwards. So do make sure they timetable that in and talk to them about things that can help rather than things that can hinder. And as well, in your classroom, have a break in exam preparation. If all you're doing for an entire year before exams is exam prep, that is really boring and stressful. and heavy for students and for you as a teacher. There needs to be breaks in it. Days where you go out and maybe do some community gardening, where the children read to younger children in school, or everyone brings in something they baked at home, yeah? Or you just do some learning for the heck of it, or you watch a film on something really interesting and discuss the characters. Okay, have breaks in exam preparation. It's important. We can't keep up that level of stress all the time. Now, one thing scientists have shown again and again is that when we have faced scenarios before that are tricky and difficult, and then we face them again, our brain adjusts because it knows we can cope. It may not have been pleasant, but we didn't die. Nothing terrible happened. We've done it before. So that first trip to the dentist might be horrific. The second, it's not going to be so bad. The third, maybe take it in our stride. That's why exam practice in exactly the scenario the exams are going to be set can really help with fear. Remember, fear stops us thinking clearly. So do have that exam practice, the length of time, the quiet of the room, the table space, however it's going to be, and have your students go through the experience. So when they face it for real, they haven't got that fear of the unknown that can be so very blocking. Exam practice really does matter. Now, some students might purposely try and evade this and miss it somehow, but try and make sure that they do go through it because it will unblock a lot of worries. Clarity is really important. Students need to know what they're going to face, how many questions they're going to be, how long they've got, how they're going to be set out, how they're marked. The more information they have, the more preparation for what they're going to see, the less they'll be worried and the calmer they will be. They are going to have a lot of fears. They are. They're going to worry. What if I'm late? What if I'm ill on the day? What if I really mess up and don't know the answer to any questions? What if I forget my calculator? Throughout the year leading up to the exams, have some fear-busting question sessions. So it could just be 10 minutes on the end of a Friday. You can say, okay, exams are coming up in 6 months. Anyone got any questions? Somebody might say, when should I start revising? What if I just get it all wrong? Yeah, and you can deal with those things. So they're not carrying those fears inside them for a year. They're getting them out, they're getting it answered, and they know it's an okay conversation to have. Other ways we can teach students to manage stress in the long run up to exams is firstly by challenging faulty thinking. Now, faulty thinking are thoughts that aren't necessarily true. For example, some students might think that if they don't do well in the exam, their life is over and they will never have the career they want. Now, that isn't true. There are many pathways to get to our goals in life. So that all or nothing thinking, that black and white thinking, that catastrophizing thinking is not useful. Mind reading is another way that students may think that isn't helpful. They may imagine that you know they are struggling, that they're finding the revision hard and they're scared of the exams. You, with a class of 30 students or however many are in your class, may have no clue this is going on because you are not a mind reader. So we need to explicitly say that to our students. We're not mind readers. If you're struggling, I'm here. Tell me about it and we'll see what we can do together to fix that. So challenge faulty thinking. Encourage them to ask questions, be open to their questions, whether that's through an email format, suggestion box in the classroom, a place where they can put their question in, or whether it's one lunchtime a week where you make yourself available. We do not want them to be doing their revision, to be getting stuck, thinking, I don't understand this. Because if they don't get over that stuckness, the next section won't make sense. So we need to let them know we are open to being asked questions. It's all very well asking their study buddy, but they may not know either, or they may not know correctly. We need to be the person they are coming to. So we need to make that available. Signposting, as I said before, is important for all students. They need to know where to go if, and what to do if they're unwell on the day, they don't understand something, they're panicking, yeah? Let them know where to go with that. You could even have that written up in the classroom or send it out on a newsletter. It's really useful to share that with parents too. Revision planning and timetabling. On a number of occasions, my children have been left to their own devices to do this and have set totally unrealistic revision plans with hours and hours of studying. Yeah, and it really needs to be balanced and it needs to be just enough. So I would suggest that your students write their revision plan in the classroom so you can oversee them and check that they are balanced, that they are sensible, and most importantly, they're achievable, because if they're achievable, your students will feel strong and capable and that they are getting somewhere in their exam planning. If they are not and they keep failing to meet their plan, they're going to feel worried and panicking. So a way of reducing stress is for you to keep an eye on that revision plan and make sure it's manageable. Again, a variety of revision techniques so that they keep interested. So some are more relaxing, some are more interactive, but just to keep them in there and interested. It's really important that students do value themselves holistically. The exams are not an indicator of their worth as a person. So it's really important that you encourage them to look at all their strengths. It could be a quick exercise in form time to write down, say, maybe 10 great things about them, none of which are academic. So it might be they're a good friend, or they're kind, or maybe they visit their granny each week, or they're brilliant at ice hockey, or they help with Girl Guides. Yeah, encourage them to value themselves holistically, so it's not all pinned on the exam. That can really reduce the stress. Nutrition, hydration, and sleep are the cornerstones of well-being, absolutely essential to good performance in any area for yourself as a teacher and for your students. And we need to make this explicit. Some students think if they work really, really late in the night, they'll get loads and loads done, or they skip a meal because they're busy, or they eat junk food to keep themselves going and have a big sugar high and then a crash. We need to teach them how these things affect performance and model it too by having our water bottles at hand. I'm talking about the great sleep we got last night. Mini goal setting, as I said before, if they have achievable revision plan and they can tick off what they've done, they're going to feel great. If you revise and have a little test on sections they've been revising throughout the year, those mini goals will keep them on track and will give them that little dopamine hit of happiness that will make them think, spurn them on to the next bit. I would encourage your students to make a chill out list as well to help them when they are stressing. We want them to feel in control rather than waiting for an adult to step in and help them. We want them to be able to help themselves. And on their chill out list, they could put music. They could devise themselves a playlist to wake them up when they're feeling sleepy or losing interest. And they could devise a playlist of music to revise to, preferably without words so it doesn't interfere with their thinking. A chill out playlist is also a lovely thing. We need to teach them to breathe well and remind them to breathe well, long and deeply with long exhales when they are getting stressed, because it really does slow down the heartbeat and remind the brain that there's nothing to panic about and everything's okay. There might be things they put on their chill out list like visualizations. They might like to imagine they're in a really beautiful place by the sea and just walk there for a minute or two in their mind and calm down. Affirmations we'll talk about shortly. There's things like bathing or being out in nature that really calm them. Every student will have a different chill out list, and it's important they know what works for them and calms them down, and it will make them feel more powerful and more in control if they make that list. Again, just a short exercise, but a really useful one. 3 good things to have in every classroom is that your students value other things apart from academic success, and they see you value other things apart from academic success. We do not want the be all and end all to be about achieving at school, although it's very, very important. That's too much pressure. So as I said before, ask them about their weekend. Ask everyone to tell you one great thing they did at the weekend, yeah, and value those things. Be a team with your students. So rather than you telling them they've got to do all this revision, them not doing it, and you being cross, and them feeling like you're the enemy, get in there. And if they're not doing what they need to do, ask them what they need to succeed. Yeah. See them as somebody who wants to do well. Tell them you're on their side. And let's find a way through together. Be a team and do build their confidence. Give them positive feedback for any progress they are making. It is encouraging and motivating, and it does far more good than knocking their confidence and telling them they're going to ruin everything if they don't knuckle down and revise. So build that confidence, because people who are confident ask for help, people who are confident think clearly, and people who are confident are braver. and generally more successful in life. Now, when it comes to the actual exams, that little bit before the exams, it's really important that students stay calm. They might have kept it together all through the year, and the week or two before the exams, they might be feeling quite frenzied. This is a great time to teach them affirmations. An affirmation is a positive statement that we say out loud repeatedly to ourselves to change the way we feel. Now, you might think this sounds a little bit crazy, like how can that work? But it's scientifically proven to work. If you tell yourself something negative, I can't do this, it's too hard for me, those words affect your feelings. They make you feel overwhelmed and despondent. And that makes you unfocused and unclear and emotional. So it affects your actions too. If you say to yourself, I can cope with hard things, I can focus, you feel in control, you feel more positive, and this helps you think more clearly. So a positive I can affirmation is a really very useful thing for a student to have. You could have them written up in your classroom, you could practice them in the form times in the mornings, and they could be around coping with exams. And then it might be a good idea to have your students pick one they want to take into the exam with them. I can do hard things, because sometimes during an exam, they're faced with something that looks impossible. And rather than that negative self-talk saying, oh my gosh, I can't do this, they can say to myself, I can do hard things. They'll give it a go. And that's what we want. Positive thinking is also really important. Okay. As I've said, thoughts affect feelings, affect action. Positive thinking is really about helpful thoughts. And the thoughts we want our students to take into an exam are these. I call them green thoughts because they're good go thoughts, and they want the ones we want to happen. So we want them to think this. And this, again, is something you could write down in a newsletter and send home, have up in the classroom and practice. We want them to think, I have done this before because I've had exam practice. I've coped with this before. I can ask for help in the week leading up to the exam if there's something I'm worried about. Yeah, I can do difficult things. Yeah, I have been working on this subject for several years. Yeah, and I can always try my best. If they take in with them all those helpful thoughts, they're going to feel pretty positive. And if they get negative thoughts come in their head, they need to let them float out and put their focus on the positive ones, because the positive ones are all true and they're all about things they can do. Then we want them to have a practical list of preparations. Have they been to the toilet before the exam? Have they had some food and water? Have they got their pencil, their ruler, their rubber, whatever they need? Write a list and have them tick off that list so they don't have to think, what do I need? It's there in front of them. It can be hard to think clearly when you are nervous. So make it easier for them and send that list home too. Power poses that I will come to in a minute. Being excited, not scared about exams sounds like a tall order. But if we tell ourselves, I'm excited to get this done, then it'll be over. And also, I will be able to move on to the next bit of my life, and I'm not revised anymore. And I'm excited to show what I know. Kids need to tell themselves this. Our brains cannot distinguish between the nerves we feel when we're excited or when we're scared. So get them telling themselves they are excited. They're excited to get this exam done. Teach them some PMR. PMR is progressive muscle relaxation. When our bodies tense, it makes our minds tense and panicky and mimics fear. So we need our students to be able to untense their body for best performance. So that's giving their shoulders a shrug. It's clenching their fists, letting go quickly, get that tension out, curling their toes, quick release. All their bits of their body. They can even do their face and grimace and let it go. Maybe not in the exam room, they might frighten someone. But PMR is a really useful tool and a bit of fun, but it does genuinely work. So there's a lot they can do pre-exams to calm their nerves. One of my favorite TED Talks ever is by a woman called Amy Cuddy. It has been viewed millions of times, and it's about how body language can impact how we feel, and how if we change our body language, we can change our emotions. And she did a lot of scientific research around this, and she found that if people put their bodies into a powerful pose, it changes the level of stress in their body. Their cortisol level reduces, their testosterone level increases, so they feel more powerful and assertive and way less stressed. And that's because when you stand in a powerful pose and take up space with your body, you are saying to your brain, I'm okay, I'm in control, and I'm here. And it's a good message for the brain to hear. So a lovely thing to do with your students before they go into an exam is a power pose. They need to hold it for 2 minutes, and it's scientifically proven to make a difference to how they'll feel. So they could do the victory pose and hold their arms above their head, the Wonder Woman pose, hands on their hips, or the boss power pose where they lean forward on a desk with their hands apart, or even the Superman pose. Young kids absolutely love this, and it's far better than a last minute cry or crammed revision session or endless trips to the toilet to do this with your class. But it is also worth teaching to older students because it is powerful and it's scientifically proven to work. And it's a very easy way to feel strong before you go into an exam situation. So actually during the exams, it's really good to give students a protocol, a routine. You explain to them the second it starts, they turn over the page. They don't sit panicking, turn it over, read the first question, read it again, see how much time they have to answer each one, and plot their time accordingly. Absolute protocol. This is what you do when you start. Get them going. Yeah. And if you panic, this is what you do. So they know absolutely, and they're not grasping around for ways through the problem. They've got with them their affirmation, I can do hard things, or I can focus, or I can cope. That's going to help them stay calm. You've taught them to breathe through panic. Slowly through their nose, we count to 4. And out through pursed lips for a long breath of 4, and to do that 4 times. It will calm their heartbeat, calm their mind. They'll be able to refocus. A bit of grounding is a good thing. They can press their feet hard into the ground, press their hands together, or they can just look around the room. 3 things they can see, 2 things they can hear, and 1 thing they can touch. Put their hands on the desk and then restart. Brings them back to the room when they're spiraling. If their mouth has gone dry, it gives the brain a signal there's something to be scared of, and all those clouded brain times occur. We don't want that. So it's good for them to check the saliva in their mouth. If their mouth has gone dry, to run their tongue over their front teeth 10 times, fill the mouth with saliva, gives the brain the message that everything's okay. And of course, they can do their PMR and their muscle releases under the desk. No one can see, but it'll get some tension out their body. So there's lots they can do in an exam to stay calm, and just teaching them that will really benefit them. One of the most important things our students can do to manage stress in an exam situation is to not let what they can't do interfere with what they can. So if they see questions they can't answer, or they absolutely have no clue what they mean, they need to focus on the ones they can and do the best they can. Otherwise, if they panic and don't answer anything, or spend way too long on stuff they really don't get, they're going to do badly. So this quote is a really good one to have up in your classroom. Don't let what you can't do interfere with what you can. Yeah, they need to focus on what they can in terms of revision. They can ask for help. They can make sure they do it. Yeah, and in the exam, it's the same. Post-exam, stress can abound. Students are thinking, oh my goodness, how did I do? The friends are talking about the answers they gave. They're worried about what's going to happen in the future. How will it affect their job? They're in their A-level choices. Still so many worries. But they need to come down. They've been stressed for a long while. And they've been working so hard. This is the time to tell them about the various next steps. What happens if they haven't done well? Well, if they've applied to university and they don't get the grades, they can go through clearing. If they go into the bottom set for maths because the exam didn't go well, you let them know there's still a chance they could move up throughout next year. Let them know in life there are many, many forms of success, and talk to them about civil rights leaders. You know, talk to them about the person that spent their life devoted to their causes, or who's become a successful businessman despite no qualifications, or who spent their life as a carer and absolutely love that. There are many, many forms of success. Maybe they're going to be a major pop star, who knows? And also talk about successful failures. There are many cool successful failures, and students love to hear these stories, because it means that if things don't quite work out for them, it doesn't mean life's not going to work out for them. So you could tell them about Steven Spielberg. He applied to film school 2 times. He got rejected, and he's one of the best film producers of all time and one of the richest. Walt Disney was a journalist and a creative, and he was told he'd never get anywhere with that. And he's Walt Disney, right? The Leaning Tower of Pisa was meant to be straight, but because it leans to the side, it's made that tower so successful as a tourist attraction. So things might go wrong, but they can often lead on to good things. And after exams, our students really do need to know that. And then you need to celebrate yourselves. And that includes you as a teacher. You will have worked so hard and put so much effort and energy in. So celebrate yourselves, because in the experience of revising and learning for these exams, you will have all learned a great deal about yourselves, your students and you. You'll have learned to be more organized, to stay positive, to be motivated, to really apply yourself to critical thinking. So many new skills, and they matter, and they are in themselves a huge achievement. And that hard work needs to be celebrated, and that progress needs to be celebrated. It's not all about the end result. So throw yourselves a party, go do something splendid for your community, and have a lot of fun. It is really very important that you celebrate the end of exams and mark that occasion. Maybe you can have some cakes in the teacher staff room, perhaps. So this is the end of the presentation. I'm going to hand you back to Bethan to tell you about a competition we've had, and thank you very much for listening.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much, Becky. That was a fantastic webinar. I know there's so many tips that I'm going to take for it as well, but the power pose especially, we were doing that just before this too. So that is definitely one that I adopt already. So just a little bit more information. So if you like this webinar and you want to see a couple of Becky's titles that she's authored of, the Collins titles that we've got here, we're doing a little wellbeing bundle prize draw. So if you scan the QR code that's on the screen now, or the link that my colleague will post in the chat that she's just posted now, Manuela, thank you. If you click on that link or scan the QR code, there's a couple of steps there to engage with our social channels or sign up to our newsletter if you've not done it already, and then that will give you a couple of entries into the competition, the prize draw, sorry, to win a wellbeing bundle. So we'll leave that on the screen now just before, and then we'll go into the questions now. So I think we've had a few that have come in. If anyone else wants to submit any questions as well, please do pop them in the Q&A box now. So we've got one that's here about what do you do about resistant colleagues? So colleagues that are resistant to adopting this, and also the students. How about resistant students as well? How do you overcome that?
I think whenever you address well-being, you will get some dissenters. I think it's because the ideas are quite new, and because I think sometimes teachers don't think it's their role, and students will think it's interfering with the academic learning they need to be getting on with, and what a waste of time. It is scientifically proven not to be a waste of time. There is a huge evidence base that says when somebody is emotionally well, they achieve their best results. So it is very important that we teach our students skills to help them stay emotionally well. In all of my books, every single topic is underpinned with evidence, scientific evidence. So you can say, this is why it works. This is why you should do these affirmations. This is why it pays to breathe well. And this scientific base or research base behind every single one of the ideas I have shared today. And I think it's very important that students know that, and your colleagues know that, because they need to trust them. Because when you trust an idea and believe in it, you're more likely to take it on board. So see resistance as an opportunity to explain the idea further and to really get that person on board, rather than just as a challenge to your new idea that you're sharing.
Fantastic. That's a great answer. And we've had another one that's come in, so that they've asked, is low self-esteem linked to stress? And I guess that opens a wider picture as to how can you notice if a student is struggling with their well-being or is becoming quite stressed? How do you notice that?
Well, the first part of the question, obviously low self-esteem and stress are interlinked. And if you have low self-esteem and you don't have much confidence in yourself, when you're asked to do something pressured, you're going to feel very panicky and very nervous, and it's just going to be exasperated. So if we can raise that self-esteem by really valuing and encouraging the young person to feel good about themselves, that will make a difference to their ability to manage stress. Stress does affect self-esteem too, because you feel out of control and you feel like it's too much, and then you think, oh, I'm not coping with this. So it goes both ways. So minimizing stress will raise self-esteem, and raise self-esteem minimizes stress. So the two are both really, really worth looking at. With your students, they are all individuals, so some might be quite shy and quiet. Anyway, that might just be their personality, and so they're not going to ask easily for help. You have to make that explicit, that you welcome that and encourage them in that. And others might be putting their hand up all the time and asking you lots of questions, but that might be because they're panicking. They might look confident and assertive, but it might be because they're panicking. So first appearances can be deceptive in terms of how well a student's coping. It's worth saying to their families, please let us know if you think your child's struggling, because home often get the real picture that maybe in a classroom it's hard for you to spot, or just perhaps the student doesn't show. So do let home know that you would like to hear if the student's struggling, but also look out for changes in behaviour. A usually confident child who's gone very quiet might be trying to tell you something, or all behaviour is communication. So do keep an eye on that. But they are all individuals, so it can be very hard to spot if someone's struggling. So ask them and let them know that you are receptive to hearing about it, because there is always something that can help.
Fantastic. It's brilliant answer. Thank you, Becky. We've had another one that's come through that said, how can we make students understand it's not just about the exam grades, but also the progress that they make at the end?
Yeah, I think if you value progress throughout, they will begin to value progress. So your positive feedback and you expressing how much they've progressed, oh, look what you've achieved since then, or getting them to reflect on that, because self-reflection is really important too, rather than external judgment, because an exam mark is an external judgment, isn't it? If they can think, do you know what, that was easier, I think I wrote that a lot better, I understood that better, they're going to value themselves. So encourage self-reflection too. And a good way to do that is to say to students, perhaps on a Friday at the end of the day, tell me 3 things you learned today. Let them see all the time how they're moving forward. And those little mini tests or mini recaps or exams are a good way for students to keep an eye on that themselves. But we want them to be their own judge, really, of their progress. But positive feedback always helps too.
Oh, absolutely. It's so encouraging.
Yeah.
And we've had another one that's come through about how do we get the newsletters from Collins. So if you click on the link that's above for the prize draw, there's an opportunity that you can sign up to the newsletter and enter into the prize draw. So it's a double whammy there for if you'd like to sign up to that, or you can find it on our website too. So do come along to that, and then we'll send you notifications for those as well. And then I guess the next one is a question from, well, not really a question, but something from me. So those case studies are fantastic and something that can really encourage students as well, for actually things didn't necessarily go to plan for this person, but now say Walt Disney is now is a household name. Everyone knows Walt Disney and Disney. Could you repeat those case studies again? Because that's fantastic. And are there any sort of other case studies or role models that you think could work for people?
There are so many successful failures out there in the world, people who things haven't worked out for, but they found another pathway through, and it's such an important message for students. So Steven Spielberg, as I said, he applied to film school twice and didn't get in, and he's a huge success. Walt Disney, as you've just mentioned, the Leaning Tower of Pisa was meant to be straight. It veers off to the side, which has made it unusual. And sometimes when things don't go wrong and you take an unusual path, that can really pay off. I know for myself, I really wanted to go and study art history at university. I worked so hard. I taught myself the A-level. and I achieved it, and I got there, and I didn't like it, and I couldn't keep up with the course because I've been self-taught. It all went wrong. I left and did something else that was better for me. So even when you think it's all about getting that exam grade, you still might end up on a very different path because it hasn't worked out. Life happens, and your students will survive, and they will go on to have a good life if only they believe in themselves. And they need to know that it's not all about getting that mark they think they need to do what they think they want to. It's believed now that most people have 12 different careers in their lifetime. That's what people are expected to have. So, you know, there are many pathways to it. I never thought that I'd be writing books. I thought I'd be curating art galleries. So, you know, we all end up in different places. They need to know that. You tell them about your failures, because we all have them, and encourage them to ask their parents about things they've done that haven't worked out, but in the end were okay. It's a good message for them to hear.